Hi, I'm Akansh and I'm SDE2 in CoPoint AI, and today I'll be telling you about MCP, how you can write your first MCP tool and how MCP is useful to you. So here is the problem. So the problem was whenever you want to do something or whenever you want LLM to actually do something for you, for example like read a file, write a file or do something on your server, you have to write a separate integration for different AI tools. But this changed. In late 2024, Anthropic released MCP, Model Context Protocol, that standardizes how LLM application talk to an external data source and tools. The mental model people uses to is USB-C. So for example, you take data in USB-C and you connect to any device and you can transfer that data from USB-C to that device. That's how MCP works. You write a tools, you write a prompts, you write resources, and then you can connect it to any AI agents, any LLMs, and you can call your tools from that MCP. So MCP has two sides. The client is an LLM application, maybe an IDE assistant, a custom agent you wrote, or a Claude. The server is what exposes capabilities. The client connects to one or more servers and uses what they offer. Unless under the hood, it's JSON RPC 2.0. Locally, the transport is usually STDIO. The client launches the server as a sub-processes. For a remote servers is HTTP with server-side events. Same protocol, different vibes. So every MCP server exposes some combinations of primitives. Understanding the difference matters more than people realize. So because each one has a different control model. First, tools. What are tools? These are the functions that model can decide. Each tool has a name, a description, and a JSON schema for its input. The model reads those descriptions and chooses when to invoke them. Example, send a message, send an email, or write users data on your server. So tools how LLMs will take an action. Second, resources. These are read-only pieces of context that application can attach to a conversation. So for example, you have to read a file or read a doc. You will give a resource and a path to that doc, and LLM can call that docs. Then third, prompts. These are predefined templates. So you give a prompt, for example, if you want to summarize something, summarize a doc. So that is a combination of a resource and a prompts. So you give a prompt, hey Claude, can you summarize this for me? And Claude will perform that action using an MCP. So here is the life cycle. When a client connects, it sends initialize. That's a handshake where both sides exchange protocol versions and capabilities. Then the client asks, what are the tools available with me? So understand it like this. So when you go to a paint shop, you ask for a catalog and then they give you a catalog and they says, hey, we have these type of paints that you can make with the different combinations. So it is very same. It is very similar. The concept is very similar. You get a catalog of what are the tools, what are the list of tools available and what actions you can perform. So when a user sends a message, the model sees those tools, definitions is in the context. If it decides to call one, so for example, if the model decides to call, users initialize or users make active. So it will see whether those tools are available or not. If those tools are available, then server executes whatever business logic it wraps, returns the results, and model uses the results to compose its reply. Nothing here is magic. It's structured RPC loop. What MCP gives you is structure, so any client can talk to any server without bespoke wiring. So let's build a minimal one. Anthropic shipped an SDK for both Python and Node.js. So we will be picking up Python today. So that's a complete MCP server. 5 lines of business logic. The decorator turns the function into tools. That the docstring becomes the description the model reads. The type hints become the input schema. The SDK handles the protocol and the transport and the JSON RPC wire format. To use it, register it in your client's config for Claude Desktop. The file is Claude Desktop config.json. We will be utilizing Claude for this since the MCP connection is very easy in Claude, but we do have an example for OpenAI and other AI tools such as Gemini or Cursor. A few things experienced MCP authors have learned the hard way. 1. Tool descriptions are your product service. So model reads and decides what to call. Vague descriptions make a tool a waste. So for example, if you have 100 different APIs, make 100 different tools. Just to save time, don't make a God tool which doesn't execute anything. Now the LLMs are great at chaining. So if you have 100 APIs, make 100 tools for them and then treat them like a docstring for a public API. So if the description is great, the MCP tool calling will be great. 2. Keep tools narrow. As discussed earlier, one tool for one particular thing. Don't make a God tool. One tool is better than a God tool with 12 different flags. The model is good at chaining. Let it do its work. 3. Strict schemas. Enum over strings, required over optional. The tighter the schema, the fewer hallucinated arguments you will deal with. So model hallucinates. Even with the most intelligent model as Fable 5, it will hallucinate if you don't define what a tool should do. So make the strict schemas and make the tool better. 4. Wrap, don't rebuild. An MCP is a thin layer over your APIs. Let APIs do the business logic. Just wrap MCP tools over it. So MCP is just a value addition to your existing business logic. Don't try to make a new business logic using your MCP. 5. Security. Every tool you expose is something the model can decide to call. Auth locks, RBACs, audit logs, rate limits. So treat MCP servers like you treat any other production API surface because that's what they are. Quick reality check. MCP isn't an LLM. It's a protocol any LLM can use. MCP doesn't have its own brain. The brain behind the tools are an LLM. It isn't Anthropic only. Other clients do implement it. Gemini and anti-gravity cursor have its own MCP now. It isn't a workflow engine. The LLM decides what to call. The server just exposes the surface. It doesn't replaces your API. It makes your API tangible to a protocol. And it is not an agent framework, but frameworks can use MCP. But MCP itself is just a protocol. Keep that in mind. That's MCP. So if you are building anything next, where an LLM needs to touch your system, start with an MCP. It is very simple. It integrates with the system, with your internal tools, with your customer data, with third-party SaaS. Instead of writing one-off integration, you will thank yourself the second time you need to do it. Spec-link and SDK links are in the description. If you want to see what we actually build on top of MCP, a real-world workflow we wired up using 2 servers. And we are planning to scale it up to multiple servers now. That's the next video. Subscribe so you don't miss it.